Blackwood was a quiet, forgotten town surrounded by an ancient forest that had stood for centuries. The people lived simple lives, but there was one unspoken rule: never go deep into the woods at night. Most dismissed it as superstition, but the town's history told a different story. Every few years, a group of teenagers vanished without a trace. No bodies, no evidence, no explanations. And yet, despite the warnings, there were always those who refused to listen. The latest group called themselves the Hunters Club. For as long as they could remember, Alex, Mason, Ethan, and Claire had been obsessed with the stories. They had spent years chasing after rumors, strange claw marks on trees, unnatural howls in the distance, and the occasional footprint too large to belong to any known animal. They believed the disappearances weren't random. Something was out there, something stalking the town, and they were going to hunt it before it could hunt them. On a cold October night, armed with flashlights, knives, and a crossbow stolen from Mason's uncle, they ventured into the forest. This time, they weren't just chasing shadows. They had a lead, a trail of fresh claw marks leading deeper than they had ever gone before. They followed it for miles, the dense trees closing in around them. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. No wind, no insects, not even the sound of their own footsteps. That's when they saw it. A small, ancient cabin half buried in the ground, covered in vines and decay. The air around it felt wrong, heavy, suffocating. But they had come too far to turn back. Inside, the stench of rot filled their lungs. The wooden floor creaked under their weight, and then they saw the walls, covered in photographs. Old, yellowed pictures of past Hunters Club members. Some dated back nearly a century. The faces were frozen in terror, some scratched out, others completely faded, as if they had never existed. At the center of the display were 4 fresh pictures, their own. Claire gasped, This isn't possible." Then, the door slammed shut. The candles flickered wildly, casting dancing shadows that moved on their own. Then came the whispers. A chorus of voices, overlapping, growing louder. Some were familiar, some sounded like their own. "You shouldn't have come. You were never the hunters. The forest always wins." A low growl rumbled from the dark corner of the room. Something was in there with them. Something hungry. Alex grabbed the door handle, but there was no door anymore. Just a solid wall. The cabin had trapped them. Mason turned to the window, trying to break it, but there was no outside. Just endless blackness. Ethan's breathing quickened. We need to stick together. We can..." The shadows lunged. The last thing Claire saw was a pair of glowing eyes in the darkness, staring right at her. Then, nothing. The cycle continues. The next morning, the townspeople noticed something odd. The forest was quieter than usual. The Hunters Club never returned. Their families searched for them, but like all the others before them, they had vanished. A week later, a new group of teenagers sat around a campfire, whispering about the legend of the missing Hunters Club. They didn't believe it. They wanted to prove it wrong. The hunt was starting again. The end.